first introduce our president, Dr. Sudhakar Jannalgadda, gastroenterologist, hepatology, transplant hepatologist. Dr. Sudhakar, can you open our webinar, sir?
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Idra. Welcome and good evening to all. And for the last 6 months, we are working very hard how to take care of these patients affected with COVID-19. Still today, we don't have a real solution. We are working with antivirals and IL-6 inhibitors and antibiotics. But now the role of steroid is a big issue now globally. I'm sure we have very exciting panelists, and I know Dr. Anna Suresh, he's with us RP seminars in the past, and I see Dr. Chakradhar Rao Garu, Praveen Kopula, Dr. Ravindra Babu, Dr. Prashant Alla. Let's see what is the personal experience treating their patients in their practices, and hoping for the best, and good luck, and thank you again, Lakesh Idra, for doing this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhakar. I would like to mention first Suresh Anne is helping us with treating as an outpatient from the early on get-go for 2 months. And Dr. Suresh Anne is a clinical professor at Michigan State University, Flint, Michigan. He's an allergy immunologist. He's from Andhra Medical College, Visakhapatnam. He's a very passionate immunologist and treating COVID-19 from office from long time. And also I will mention one panelist. We want to do as a panelist, this is going to be a discussion rather than a speech. So Dr. Prasanthi Alla, I've been working with Dr. Prasanthi Madam for the last 2.5 years in CPR across the globe and especially in Guntur. And she's very kind-hearted. She procured so many PPEs for the community. And we've been communicating with her about the outpatient. She started already outpatient treatments, and now her hospital opened. She want to talk about few minutes after the introduction of our panelists. Suresh, go ahead and introduce our other panelists.
Thank you, Dr. Idra. Also thank Dr. Sudhakar Jannalgadda for allowing us conference. Right now, pandemic is going on in India. It is affecting all the. Before further ado, I will introduce the remaining panelists. So hopefully you will enjoy. The purpose of this meeting is to mainly address the information with no. So a lot of doubts.
Your voice is not clear, Suresh.
Yeah, we have a lot of doubts and questions arise. So that's why. Can you hear me now?
You can hear there's some disturbance, but you don't have any ear for it, right? Go ahead, continue.
Any speaker phones on? Please switch out the speaker.
Oh, the other speakers. Okay. Yeah, we're okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So now, without delay, I will introduce the other panelists that are in the group today. The first person is Praveen Kopula. He is from Hyderabad. He is one of the young physicians in the group. He is actually, he was an MD and general internist, and is a diabetology training from Johns Hopkins. He's working now as an intensivist and a consultant intensivist for the Basavatarakam Indo-American Cancer Institute. He also worked in Apollo and other hospitals and major hospitals in Hyderabad. He's also helping a fellowship program in intensive care. The second person that I'm introducing is Dr. Chakradhar Rao Guduru. He is one of my good friends. Because of him, we started this meeting as a small meeting for Vijayawada group, and then it was spanned out to be for the whole Indian physicians all over. He is a retired superintendent of General Hospital in Vijayawada. He is now currently working as head of the department of medicine at Siddhartha Medical College. He has been treating, because Siddhartha Medical College is also a COVID hospital, so he has been treating many patients with COVID. And the last but not the least, I'm introducing is Dr. Ravindra. Ravindra Babu. He is well known to most of the pulmonologists in India and most of the internists in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. He was my teacher, my professor, my friend, guru, and mentor. Everybody knows about him, about the X-ray, teaching of the X-rays, how to read the X-rays. If you did not listen to him, you can go back to Webline. I think that's available. Last week he gave a wonderful lecture about the chest X-ray and how to read the chest X-rays. He's I don't think I have to introduce anymore. He's a professor of pulmonology. He's a retired professor from the government hospital, chest hospital in Vizag. He's now currently working as a chest physician in, professor in NRI Medical Sciences, Visakhapatnam. With this introduction, I will ask each panelist to give briefly, one by one. Dr. Dara, you can moderate it.
So I'm going to thank you, Suresh. I really appreciate introducing all our esteemed speakers. And we're going to start with Dr. Prasanthi Arla, her presentation. So I will share the screen with her. Go ahead, Dr. Prasanthi.
Good morning and evening to all. I am Dr. Prasanthi. I am a practicing anesthesiologist and emergency physician in Guntur. Currently, I am managing a 50-bedded hospital in Guntur. Now, our hospital is notified for COVID patients by the government. And for the past 7 days, we are flooded with all our beds are full. All the 50 beds of our hospital are full. So for the past 1 month, I have been treating patients, COVID patients on outpatient basis on via telemedicine. So what I observed is early steroid is doing good for the patients. Once we start the steroid, they are getting relief, immediate relief in 12 hours, and their saturations are improving gradually. By 48 hours, they are stabilizing. And I can see that in their, I was following them on pulse oximeter every day, 3 times a day. They are posting their oxygen levels on phone, so I could follow them. So more than 30 patients for the in the last 30 days. So now currently I have 12 patients as on outpatient basis via telemedicine, and now inpatients we are our hospital is full, 50 beds, 50 patients are there. All are mild to moderate cases only, but their saturations, admitting saturations, some of them are having less than 85% also. 5% were having less than 85%. So in those cases, we gave steroid methylprednisolone injection 125 milligrams BD, and then we de-escalated to 40 milligram BD. So they settled within 48 hours. We are happy with that. And in cases with SATs between 85 and 93, we are giving 40 milligram IV BD, and they are getting settled in 48 hours. But the response in 12 hours, the patients are getting immediate relief within 12 hours. So that's a thing we are very happy with giving these steroids and the dose, actually.
Do you see any, this location, madam, do you see any diabetes? A lot of people have questions on diabetes, sugar management when you're giving the steroids. So what do you think?
Yes, sir. The sugars are getting higher on the higher side, but it's not at all a problem as we are escalating the insulin dose by 5 units or 6 units, and we are able to manage them, actually.
And like I showed in my slide, do you have remdesivir any of these patients or IL-6
No,
blocker?
sir, we are not using remdesivir in these patients for around 10% of the people. For around 5 people, we used favipiravir.
Okay. And You mentioned about outpatient patients you're following. Are you able to keep them in the outpatient, or they end up in any hospital? Most of them.
Out of all those patients I treated, only one patient ended up in the hospital, sir. He has got a lot of comorbid conditions, diabetic, hypertensive, and he has got ischemic heart disease also. So he was maintaining around 91 and 90. So I thought you better get admitted.
So the main speaker we requested, Dr. Prashanthi Garu, is with 12, a small, I mean, Guntur is like a 5-6 lakhs population, a small hospital where she can able to treat out of 10 patients, only one needed admission with high comorbidity. So if India goes all the way, all the globes goes all the way earlier, outpatient, like Dr. Suresh said, this will 10% may be in the hospital. That's a major point we like to make it. Number two, even in the hospital, there are two types of characters of the patient we learn from her. One is the pulse ox below 85, we're giving the lower dose, they're responding well, and they're not going to ICU, and a little bit lower pulse ox below 85, and they're going to be higher dose 120 twice a day, and she's able to manage their glucose very well. So these are 3 points I like to bring from her presentation, and this is a take-home message. Then we'll open, Madam, please stay, and we'll ask more questions as we go through, and because you have a wealth of experience. Suresh can go ahead and go to the next speaker, sir. And your internet is poor, I think, but go ahead.
Okay. Let's ask Dr. Prashant. Do you have, what is your experience in the ER, and can you unmute and give us briefly a couple of minutes about your experience?
Sir, pardon, sir. Please.
Praveen, sir. Okay.
Praveen, sorry, I'm sorry, Praveen.
Praveen should be unmuted.
Right. Yeah. Hi, sir. So can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Oh, you're again muted. Can you unmute, Praveen?
Unmute.
Praveen, can you unmute? Ah, yeah, good.
Yes, sir. I've unmuted it. Sir.
Go ahead.
Right, sir. So way back in March, we've started our preparation for this one, sir. As soon as we
I think his poor interconnection, maybe.
Okay.
You want to go to other one, then we could bring back sir.
Right. I think we'll move to Dr. Ravindra Babu. Professor Ravindra Babu, will you please give experience so that that you have treated recently, which we have been discussing.
Good morning and good evening, everybody. Am I clearly audible?
Yes, sir.
See, even when I was a postgraduate, I was a very strong fan of steroid. See, even before the guidelines came about the steroids in COPD or the steroids in community-acquired pneumonia, so we used to give a lot of steroid in both the conditions. Only later on the guidelines have come. Likewise, we also used to treat even sometimes the H1N1 as well as the ARDS with steroids, with of course some benefit. Now, actually, see, I work in an isolation committee in the district collectorate of Visakhapatnam, and along with Prem Kumar, I was also an advisor in the critical care group as well as the technical committee. See, actually, from the March itself, myself and Dr. Prem Kumar was the critical care expert in the state COVID center, which is the WIMS. So we used to treat of course, he treats many cases because he's in the critical care group. We used to treat with steroid. Though our state guidelines have not given anything about steroid, or neither the ICMR at that time in the March. Even WHO has not advised, and we used to treat them with good response. See, nowadays, see, our NRI college was also opened. That was the third line because of the rush of cases, surge of the cases recently. Almost we are getting 1,000 per day. And previously, all the cases were who needed oxygen are used to be sent to the state COVID center, that is the WIMS. But because now it is full, in NRI itself, we treat the cases. Almost we treated 34 cases with the steroids. See, initially we followed the ICMR guideline, and one case, very uncontrolled diabetic, he just suddenly died. And see, I always had a doubt about the generic drugs. What is the strength about that? So nowadays, what we are doing is we are starting almost 2 vials of Decadron BD. As soon as the patient comes, particularly when, as Madam said, when it is below 85 and with a very high respiratory rate and restless. So as soon as he stabilizes, then we go for 1 BD and then OD. And after 6 days, we taper to steroid methylprednisolone tablets. We don't use usually the injection methylprednisolone because of, see, the medical college get very meager money from the Aragashic, and methylprednisolone, all of you know, is costlier, and Decadron is cheaper. So almost out of the 34, we discharged 24 cases within 10 days. See, one of the problems is, see, as Paul Ehrlich said in 1913, we have to hit hard and hit fast because we have to discharge the cases early because there are no beds anywhere. So my strategy is to hit it hard. So we give injection Decadron 2 vials BD and then taper on once he stabilizes to 1 BD, 1 OD. And then within 10 days, we discharge them with, again, 5 days tapering of the prednisolone or the methylprednisolone, whatever is available. Can I share one case?
Please.
Sure.
This is myself and Dr. T. Balaraju. We managed because I cannot go anywhere. So this is a very
Okay.
a 50-year-old obese lady, type 2 diabetes mellitus, HTN, history of fever and cough just 2 days, and worsening SOBs in just only 1 day. So an examination SpO2 on room air is only 50%, and severe tachypnea, RR is almost more than 60. On 15 liters of oxygen, the SpO2 is 70%. Conscious oriented, but very, very restless. Their ferritin is 610. Later on, they came LDH 622, D-dimer 2500. The results came after 2 days. See, what we did is we thought we should not ventilate her. So managed with NIV with the ventilator and on PS and PEEP with the P10, PS10 and TVRN 400. So even after that, the rate was 50, so we allowed it. See, I always felt the increased rate is always physiological. See, there is no need to be afraid of fatigue in the initial period. So even with FiO2 of 100%, SpO2 was only 85%. And immediately we started her an IV methylprednisolone 1 gram pulse dose, and we gave her 3 days. And also started the remdesivir as soon as it was available. And see, initially she could not give anything orally because the moment we try to remove the mask, she was used to be very restless and respiratory rate goes very high. So a good improvement seen on the day 3 of the steroid, FiO2 80%, PEEP 10, RR around 40 and SpO2 was 90%. So from 3rd day injection, vitamin C and B1 was given. And we also, as soon as she could take orally, we started colchicine also, 0.5 BD, for whatever it is worth. So today is the 9th day in ICU and on 40 milligrams of Solumedrol, methylprednisolone, sorry. She was only on 2 liters of nasal cannula, maintaining 94% respiration around 20. I don't know whether she might have responded to 125 TAD also, but because of her condition, we could not see that. So our aim was to save that. We thought initially, see that pulse dose is definitely we should be given. See, likewise, I treated another 2 cases. Dr. Phanendranath Reddy in Apollo, relative of one of the superintendents of the DCH. He was also very obese and very restless with high fever. We gave almost 250 BD initially, and by 48 hours, it was reduced to 125. And the ALCs came as almost 1500, but we ignored it because the patient is improving. So we continued, and he was discharged on the 10th day with the tapering steroid. And another case also relative of one of the assistant professor. So he was also very obese. So we started on 500 BD of Solumedrol. See, he was ventilated immediately in the care hospital. But he was very much improving. See, he was on only a pressure support with the tapering dose of this thing. And he was also made to sit and made to even stand with the pressure support. But unfortunately, suddenly on one day he had a bradycardia and died. I don't know. Otherwise, you would have come back. So that is my opinion of about the steroid. See, whenever it is needed, particularly in severe condition, I think we should not hesitate to give the very high dose also. We should not be bothered about the, particularly when the patient is not ventilated, because with coupling with the muscle relaxant, there may be neuropathy or whatever it is. With steroids, pulse dose is used in many times in many of the rheumatoid conditions. So that is my take on it. So to hit it hard and hit it fast. Thank you very much for the giving opportunity.
Sir, this again, one question to sir. So when a lot of people coming to the hospital at the first minute, their pulse ox, your dose, what do you recommend, sir, when they're coming to the hospital immediately? What's the dose you're recommending earlier? Because it's better to prevent the cytokine than to treat it. Your opinion, sir?
I told you, ours is the private medical college, and what we see, there are 2 conditions. We have to send the patients very early. And see, what happened is we didn't start the ICU because the anesthesiologist wanted negative pressure. So we could not allow them to go to the ICU.
Okay.
So, and we could not send them to the state COVID center because it is almost full. So we have to start early and you have to start high dose. Okay. So I recommended almost, I told you 2 vials of BD. So another condition is, I don't know the generic drugs, how much they contain. So I think they are safe. Even diabetes, our physicians could be able to control. Almost more than 30% of the cases are diabetes. Only the one uncontrolled diabetic who was just eating like hell. Even her wife after death commented that he never bothered about the medicines and all that. He suddenly died. I don't know whether it is.
Thank you, Ravindra. And we'll ask now Dr. Chakravarti Rao to unmute you. He can give a couple of minutes of his experience. Then we'll go through a few cases, and then we'll get during the panel discussion.
Good morning, Suresh and Dr. Sudhakar and Dr. Lokesh there, and good evening to all fellow physicians of India. So at the outset, I would like to thank profusely to my friend and classmate, Dr. Suresh, taking all the trouble to arrange this webinar and share his experiences maybe later. So I would like to make just a correction. Now I am in Pinaneni Siddhartha Medical College, just 20 days after my retirement, not in the government Siddhartha Medical College. Previously I was in government Siddhartha Medical College. Anyhow, so I would like to share some of my experiences in government Siddhartha Medical College, which is a state COVID hospital, a tertiary care hospital. We were working since the last week of March till today. there is a huge burden on this hospital because all the moderate to severe cases are being referred to here, and we are forced to keep them almost all the cases in ICU setup. We have ICU of nearly 300 beds, and practically we have more than 200 beds with ventilator facilities and all those things. And our experience is with more of ICU rather than non-ICU. We have non-ICU also in the tune of 500 beds, non-ICU setup. Fortunately or unfortunately, in the first weeks of April, we experienced a bit lesser mortality. But unfortunately, of late, the better truth is the mortality has risen, maybe due to surge of the positive patients that are being admitted. So I would like to share that initially we are of apprehension to start the steroids or not. But very quickly we switched to starting the steroids whenever the oxygen saturations are going down below 94. And fortunately, it is cost effective also, they're very cheap. And we could able to discharge some of the patients walking. That is the positive point of it. And unfortunate part is also we experienced, we lost one doctor, young doctor by name Lakshman, who is obese. He had a contact history. His father died and he admitted into our hospital after 4 days of fever. And at that time, we didn't have remdesivir. We treated him with other antivirals, lopinavir, ritonavir, and steroids. And we faced a problem because he is also de novo diabetic, maybe due to steroids we have given. Yet we managed near glycemic states with IV insulin 6 hourly. Because of his high obesity, maybe that contributed to his deterioration. And unfortunately, we don't have the recent antivirals, which those are available in United States, but we are having those remdesivir and others since 6 weeks only here in India. And I am incidentally the principal investigator for the WHO ICMR sponsored solidarity trial, in which they have provided us remdesivir maybe some 6-8 weeks back. From that onwards, we are keeping the patients on remdesivir in the first week itself, depending upon the infiltrations. And we received very good results after that remdesivir. That is our personal experience. And we are starting, and we are having a death audit every week. And on Saturdays, yesterday also we had it. And we strongly opined that early starting of steroids is most effective and cost effective also. So everybody cannot go for tocilizumab. We have some good experiences with the tocilizumab also. Our own postgraduate, 30 postgraduate, recently affected, and his IL-6 soared up like anything, and fortunately he was discharged safely out of our hospital. And we have given tocilizumab and steroids also, and we faced some difficulty in treating this doctor also to control the blood sugar levels. But we have control, and luckily he was made out of danger. And another one experience is with another one of our ostentoses who has taken Flu before getting admitted, had developed bradycardia, and it was an alarming situation. Sometimes it has gone below 40 also. So, but we held our nerves, we treated her with some isopranolam and atropine. Thanks to other cardiologists, she is slowly recovering from that. So our experience is, of late we are having soared up mortality. Previously, in the early weeks of April, it is something like 4 or 5, or something or less than that. Unfortunately, we are hearing 15 or 20 per day. But it can happen because ours is a tertiary care hospital, where we are flooded with all serious ill patients with all comorbidities with elderly age groups. So that is this for hospital, and we are of the opinion that the steroids or early introduction of steroids is effective both by cost as well as to decrease the seriousness of the patient and improving the oxygenation. That's what we have the experience with our hospital.
Thank you, Chakradhar. And now I would like to present a few cases. In between each case, we will have a panel discussion. Okay, we have gone through for the last 3-4 months regarding this COVID pandemic and confused about different drugs. So finally, we see that there is a silver lining. There is some hope that we can probably catch these patients early and treat them. So with this, I want to present a few cases that we have seen. This was one of my first failure case. The 80-plus-year-old male I presented before, who has a definitive COVID, and he was into the COVID inflammation. This, you can see all his inflammatory markers were elevated. We have treated everything supportively, except the steroids or any other antiviral medications. The outcome is not good. It was sad, and the patient could not tolerate it. Since then, we have come along a lot. So what did we understand? What is that about the COVID-19 in special? You know, even though it is present in the coronaviruses and other, the people dying ARDS.
Suresh, your voice is breaking.
Okay. Is it clear now?
Yeah, a little better.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No.
Yeah. So what we are saying is the COVID is just like any other coronaviruses. It does cause eventually the ARDS, or which are the hyperinflammation phase. We have seen this before with other viruses, but we did not notice because they are not that widespread. So with this COVID spreading, and because of the contamination is so fast, we are now recognizing this virus is causing it to 2 phases. The disease has 2 phases. One is mainly the viral. The viral phase usually runs its course. It doesn't cause any major problem, whether you treat it or you don't treat it. And also we know that the viral load may not be any reason to cause the further problem. So the next phase we were concentrating now, which is a delayed phase, which present in mainly about 20% of the patients that affected this virus. That's why we are concentrating more on inflammation. This inflammation phase is very clear. Now, everyone in the world, every scientist in the world agrees that the patient's mortality is depending on whether they develop into inflammatory phase or not. Out of these patients that develop inflammatory phase, 50% of them get severe inflammation, admit in the hospital, or even in the ICU that needed the specifically supportive care assistance with the respiration. This is the group that we want to prevent it. That is how we want to prevent. This is last 3 months we have been having with experience. There may not be many studies that are coming in, but since the Oxford study came in, we are at least more comfortable that what we're doing with the steroids is a right thing. And it is an ethical thing to give these patients way before the inflammation develops, treat the inflammation to prevent it further damage and prevent the mortality. This is our first patient. This patient is a 30-year-old male who had an RT-PCR positive for COVID and developed low-grade fever 5 days after suspected contact with the patient, complaining of excessive tiredness and body pain. Otherwise, he's a normal, healthy adult. No hypoxemia after 2 to 6 minutes of walk. His O2 sat was 98%. 2 days later, RT-PCR is positive for COVID-19, treated with the paracetamol for every 6 hours for 3 days, and fever reduced, and X-ray was normal, HRCT reported CORAD-2. Are we going to treat this patient with the inflammatory markers were normal, except the lymphocyte count was low? This is one of the dilemma that we have. And after discussing with the people we were, what does this patient has? This patient has a viral load, viral disease. Because he's having a viral disease, we would like to treat with antiviral, but at that time we do not have any antiviral. So this patient was observed, treated with supportively with a good outcome. I'll go this one later, but I would like to stop here and take the panel questions, how we have to treat.
Okay, Suresh, we have a question on, I think, one of the most important along with early steroids, the anticoagulants, because people are going, now even India, we concentrate on 2 weeks sending them home. You're going to hear, I guarantee you're going to do this in a month from now, you're going to hear strokes, myocardial infarctions, PEs coming back. So in New York and learn that, and they're already putting everybody in the hospital for 4 weeks of anticoagulants like Eliquis, or even 6 weeks if the D-dimer high. Suresh and other panelists, can you mention anticoagulants importance, sir?
Okay. The way that I found that the treatment of the anticoagulant with the patient with elevated D-dimers is, I treat it as like a injury to the vessels. Why they develop D-dimers and the coagulation problem is they get vasculitis. And that is causing the problem with the D-dimers elevation and the coagulation. So these patients I treat like any other patient, that for the normal recommended thing is about 3 months of anticoagulation. But in my patients, when we're treating, since I started treating with the steroids, when the inflammatory markers down, after the D-dimers were improved, I'm treating them for a 4-week period of anticoagulation. Until now.
Prasanthi madam, what are you doing in the hospital for your patient on anticoagulants? And what is your plan?
We are putting them on subcutaneous enoxaparin, sir, low molecular weight heparin. It's 0.4 ml PD. So, and when we are discharging, we are putting them on Eliquis.
And how will you plan to?
2.5 milligram BD.
Oh, okay, great. Praval Kumar came back. Sir, can you talk?
Yes, sir. So basically, we have a very clear-cut protocol, sir. Sorry, my internet was down in between.
No,
so, sir, for all the patients who are mildly symptomatic or asymptomatic, whose saturations were above 95, we are generally not putting them on any sort of steroid. And primarily, we give a lot of importance to the particular viral replication phase and the inflammatory phase. So, in the early first 7 days, we are avoiding to put steroids. First 5 to 7 days, where the viral replication is very high. And so I see a lot of teleconsultations, and along with that, a lot of ICU patients who are also admitted, which is more than 100 patients actually. So when the patient is saturating at 95 and less than 95, so we put them on home oxygen therapy about 2 liters, and then we start them on favipiravir. Along with that, we put them on enoxaparin 60 milligrams, and we also start them on the steroid, giving utmost importance to the day of the inflammatory phase. So we start them on about 6 to 8 milligrams of dexamethasone based on the weight. And once we see if any person is desaturating to 92% on 2 liters of oxygen, we immediately start them off on remdesivir. But to be very frank, I actually feel that remdesivir probably given earlier in the viral replication phase is probably more helpful. And regarding the anticoagulation, yes, we are, as sir said, it is more of an endothelial injury. So to offset this, we put them mostly on enoxaparin 60 milligrams twice daily. And for people who, we have seen people having strokes, myocardial infarctions, and myocarditis on all these ones. So for these particular subset of patients, we are treating them for 3 months with a home-based Eliquis or rivaroxaban. And most of the times after the onset of steroids, after starting them on steroids, we have seen really good responses from the patient population. We have even seen 85-year-olds with multiple comorbidities. Particularly in our setup, we have a lot of immunocompromised patients, cancer patients. We have seen good amount of subset of patients walking out on these particular, after we started them on steroids. But I feel still there are quite a few number of questions which have been left unanswered. I would say which type of steroid to be used. The recovery trial clearly says that dexamethasone arm has got a very good recovery. But again, when we compare it with methylprednisolone, and that's about 6 milligrams of dexamethasone concurs to about 32 milligrams of methylprednisolone. So how much of methylprednisolone is good? Do we give 1 gram? Do we give 120 milligrams BD, or do we give 60 milligrams BD? And again, we have there is no consensus on the type of steroid we need to use. So there are multiple questions we need to still answer. But yes, one thing is for sure, we used to hardly use any sort of steroid, particularly in influenzas, or even the literature says that in SARS and MERS, usage of steroid was not much helpful. But when it comes to SARS-CoV-2, and when it started in the right time, we are seeing really good responses from the patient population.
Let me go ahead. Suresh, you want to tell us methylprednisolone and this?
Right. Lokesh, I think I'll discuss in the later cases
Okay,
about doing it, then what kind of steroid that we are using and our experience, etc. And I agree what the Praveen is saying, because we were not using the steroids before, so we do not have much idea where it starts, when to start, etc. So let's move on to the next case, and because this case I put it in so that
Ramakant Reddy, can you unscreen, take off the screen, please? You took over the screen, Ramakant Reddy. Okay, exit out of the screen. Thank you.
So what we are showing is this case illustrates that it is an early stage of the disease. So in this stage, do we need to treat with the steroids or not? I think I feel, but personally, that this is the stage we need to observe. And because we don't have any inflammatory markers that is elevated, we don't have any desaturation or saturation going down, so that these kind of patients are the early stages. Maybe these patients may be used with antiviral drugs. That's also a debatable. Then go to the next patient, who is a 57-year-old male with RT-PCR positive, and he has hypoxemia. His resting pulse ox was 94, and after walking, it was 90%. Chest X-ray, bilateral infiltrate. All these patients are real patients. That's why, lymphocyte count was 1250. It's not still in the lymphocytopenic. Monocytes are 600. Neutrophils are 9,000. His CRP, ferritin, D-dimers were elevated. This patient, we consider that as he's already in the inflammatory phase. He's already started the inflammation. It is progressing now. You can see the chest infiltrates bilaterally. So this is the patient we thought, okay, this was by the time we called, he's very dyspneic. He was at home. So we put him on prednisone 40 milligrams BID. Started supplement and supportive care at the home oxygen. The patient was already given hydroxychloroquine for 5 days. So he did not respond. That is the time they called us. Then the hypoxemia persisted. Even after 1 week, it is going down 86%. Chest X-ray bilateral infiltrate persisted and progressively worsening. And the lymphocyte count, you can see that they started creeping up. Not only that, the neutrophil count was also going up 20,000. The CRP was 23, ferritin doubled, and the D-dimers slowly started going up. So we felt everybody think that, change it to the prednisone 60 milligrams BID. Convalescent serum was given, tocilizumab was given, 2 doses were given. Waited for 1 more week. And his hypoxemia and oxygen supplement increased. He was actually put on BiPAP. He was admitted in the hospital at that stage, and the pulse ox dropped to less than 80. This is even on 6 liters of oxygen. Lymphocyte count, you can see that they're growing up, 2,800. So the inflammation is not controlled here. It is, the D-dimers were almost 10 times elevated. So what is happening here in this case is we are running behind it. Whenever there is a change is increasing, a little bit of steroids were increasing. This is the time we decided, okay, enough is enough. We started on the methylprednisolone, 125 milligrams 3 times a day. And we're also concerned about the PE and also the pneumonia, which you can see the right side. There is markers of the pneumonia in the left side. So once even with that, we were not worried about it. We started on the methylprednisolone 125 milligrams. And after 3 days, his markers started going down and the oxygenation improved. After 1 week, he was discharged home. And when he came home, for the discharge note they were given, stop the steroid 2 days or the day before the discharge, and they did not start him on the steroids. When he came home, after 2 or 3 days, he started again spiking fever. He started again becoming shortness of breath. So we had to start back again on the steroids and continued it for at least another 2 to 3 weeks. So this case illustrates that he needed steroid starting, but we were chasing the disease from the beginning. It took him for 4 weeks to get out of the hospital, and then it took another 2 weeks to recover completely. So the story of this one, the take-home message that we want to give is, this is what I mentioned. I'm sorry, the corticosteroid stopped in the fever spike, again treatment with the methylprednisolone, slow tapered in 3 weeks. So the lesson learned from this case is the treatment should not follow the COVID-19. Act quick to beat the COVID-19. Do not stop corticosteroids too soon. Modify the treatment when the patient improves. So from this onwards, we started using the steroids way early with a high dose, really hitting hard about the inflammatory phase. I will ask the panelists to comment, starting with the Dr. Professor Ravindra Babu.
Yeah, as I said earlier, see, my view is to hit it hard, but even in some cases, I don't know, even if hitting hard, sometimes even after 3 weeks, not much of improvement will be seen. And even with the tocilizumab, they don't improve. See, these cases, I don't know how exactly to treat. Maybe we will encounter only 1 or 2 cases like that. In most cases, when we start early and high dose, they respond well. So the once they stabilize, I think we can reduce the dose. I already told you what we do in our college.
I think it's a similar case like you have treated with 1 gram of dose for 3 days and then tapered out.
That is different completely. She's almost about to die and to go on a ventilator. That is different.
Right. So this is also in this patient also we were able to prevent. He's almost about to be ventilated. He was able to prevent this. That's why it is now this case was presented to show that it is important not to hesitate about giving the steroids and then adjusting the steroid dose as per the patient's condition. Dr. Idara?
There are 3 case reports here. We have one of our classmates, Guntur Medical student in the hospital, where hydrocortisone is 100 milligrams IV, and we involved after 3 days. We were able to increase the more steroids, and his symptoms 48 hours later better. Well, first day, if it had given, he would have been better 3 days before. The second case in my hometown, the steroids were given a week, got better. The another week, some other doctor came to cough. A week later, things are number down. So we have hundreds of cases like that. Steroids stopped a few days. So minimum we're talking about 2 weeks. If symptoms are there, maybe some of them up to 3 months they're there with the Guillain-Barré syndrome. We see that minimum 2 weeks without high dose enough. That's what my opinion. Prasanthi madam, do you want to comment on this?
Lokesh, I have a question. Sudhakar. See, we have a different experience using dexamethasone and methylprednisolone. So we want to make sure, the panelists, any steroid is okay, or any specific steroid is helpful more than other steroid?
I think the studies from Dr. Meduri, we presented through Abi, like he is the one who's pioneered. All the pulmonologists respect him very well. He's from University of Memphis. He did 30 years of research, ARDS steroids. They think the methylprednisolone being less glucose fluctuation because its penetration in the lung, the basic bench research done well on the methylprednisolone. But we understand our process saying the cost is important, but any steroid is better than none. Sooner is better, higher dose of any steroid is better. But if you have a choice, methylprednisolone is a more long research. The UK choose dexamethasone because they're cheaper medications, more available, thousands are given. But the base research done 20 years is on methylprednisolone. That's the one we can present. It's recorded on our webinars, which is there in our RP website.
Regarding steroids, can I share?
Sir, please.
It has been mentioned the dexamethasone to be avoided while we are giving simultaneously remdesivir because it may decrease the potency. So in such cases, you can use methylprednisolone. There is one. Or otherwise, any steroid is okay. As we said, any steroid you start better than none. There is one. And dexamethasone is used more extensively because of its lesser mineralocorticoid action, so that there is no water retention and other side effects.
Sir, I think the most important point we need to discuss is at what time do we start the steroid? Probably, I think it's when the patient starts getting hypoxic. Probably when the saturations are at 94%, I think that's the best time to start the steroid. And regarding what type of steroid do we use? Yes, just as sir mentioned, then I think methylprednisolone is a very good option because its lung concentrations are very high. And yeah, but again, dexamethasone is quite a very cheaper option where in resource limited settings, like particularly in India, where I think dexamethasone is a very good option to use. But I think methylprednisolone at probably about 1 to 2 milligrams per kg, I think we have seen quite a good recovery of patients. And using it in the right time, that's at 94 or 93% saturation when the patient is having that inflammatory phase, I think that's the right time to start the steroid.
I would like to add something. The other panelists may give their own opinion. So if you are having any facility to measure TNF and others where there is a viral replication, is it prudent to just postpone the introduction of steroids maybe for 1 week?
No.
Where viral replication is high?
Okay, that's it's still unanswered question, but what we feel at this time, Chakradhar, is the acute viral phase, the first week is done. First week is all acute viral phase. The minute you see the hypoxemia, the minute you see the inflammatory markers going up, the viral phase is gone. That's the inflammatory phase. So inflammatory phase, you are very safe to treat with the steroids. Even with the viral phase, even in acute viral phase, if you give the steroids, there were no other deleterious effects we have seen. If you think about asthma patients, we always treat with asthma with acute exacerbation whenever they develop acute viral infections with steroids. We have not seen any problem with the viral, disseminated viral disease in use of steroids.
Suresh, just I want to know, as we see in HIV regarding the viral load, will this viral load in any way affect the outcome?
No, sir.
Increase the viral load?
No, sir. This is Lokesh. We have seen the asthma patients persistently from age 1 to 90 years with viral and different things. We have not seen influenza, asthma flare. We gave 40 milligrams steroid earlier. And there is no, I like to ask our panelists where we can present a study, viral load killed the patient, affected the patient, or your experience of 30, 40 years. I need, that's what I'm requesting.
Lokesh, let me add here one thing. I think what Chakradhar was saying is about the HIV patient. HIV patient pathophysiology is entirely different, Chakradhar. In HIV, the problem is the virus persists and it kills the whole lymphocytes, the whole lymphatic system. So we do not have any defense. That's why you're getting the opportunistic infections significantly. That is actually a chronic phase. And in the HIV, pathophysiology is entirely different. That is the pathophysiology is an immune deficiency. Here it is not immune deficiency. It is the acute phase. After that, the virus is gone. The next phase is acute inflammation. Acute inflammation, if you do not treat it with the steroids, it's going to kill the patient. So there is two entirely different things. The oranges and apples, we cannot compare it. So in the AIDS patients, it's because of the lymphatic system is completely destroyed. We are not using any steroids there. Their steroids also cause immune suppressive, then increases the opportunistic infection and the kill. But in coronaviruses, in the COVID-19 especially, you do not have to worry about that problem.
Suresh, in one of your case scenarios, you are telling you increase the lymphocyte count. Is it the point where we are likely to increase the dose of the steroid or introduce the steroid at that particular point?
No, the other way around I'm talking about is Chakradhar. As long as you see the lymphocytopenia, you are in the safe period. The patient is not developing the inflammation. So even if you have a lymphocytopenia, if your inflammatory markers start going up, like hypoxemia and other markers going up, if we start the steroids at that time, it is completely, we can prevent it. If you're seeing the lymphocyte count is going up, that means the patient is not suppressed. Their immune system or inflammation is not suppressed. We are going into trouble. So I have seen patient after patient, whenever there is a lymphocytosis started going up, that is not a good sign. That means we're not treating with enough anti-inflammatory drug to suppress the the inflammation. So that's the key point I want you to understand. We're thinking until now is lymphocytopenia is bad, but any acute viral infection, you see lymphocytopenia. When you started lymphocytosis, reverse back, that is really a telltale sign that their inflammation is not controlled, especially when you attach with the inflammatory markers going up. So that's what the key point I want you to really understand.
So then we have to escalate the dose of steroid.
Exactly.
Suresh, suppose the patient is recovering on his own from the viral infection and doesn't have the immunosuppression, then also the lymphocytes count may go up, isn't it?
Yeah, they may go up.
It doesn't mean that
then you're looking
if the patient is okay. It all depends on whether the patient is deteriorating or is quite asymptomatic.
Exactly, Ravindra. That's why we were saying we want to understand the inflammatory markers. That means if your patient has getting into hypoxemia or the D-dimer is going up, ferritin is going up, CRP is going up, then if you see the lymphocytosis started going up, that's a prognostic sign we follow. Just the lymphocytes going up without any other markers, they're recovering. That's in the recovery phase. That we don't worry about it. So I think I'm clear on this issue.
Well, actually, I'm going to, I just had a patient, one of our family members, been out of home treatment with subdose of steroids. This is given only 36 milligram prednisone. She's already to 3 weeks, and we just got the D-dimer level and the IL-6 levels, both are high. So this patient would have given 80 milligrams from the day one, would not have been in this situation. I just got the text. She lives in Vijayawada. She's a 63-year-old female. So we're going to increase it, and then we're going to put the anticoagulants. So this, what my suggestion to every physician and every doctor, this is not a 1 week thing. This is like a 2 to 2 months deal. So please, 2 to 2 months deal. That's what we want to do. There's one more question here. This sir also indirectly, that Praveen sir, optimum oxygen level. Do we need for low oxygen level? And also practical aspects of checking pulse ox 92, 94 to add steroid or not. In India, it's not possible, sir, because we're dealing with, I have a patient, my family member I lost, he never called and then died. And other one is in our own town. Even I'm telling everybody, he just stay there for a week, then he is in the IC hospital. So this, we're losing that. Everybody don't have pulse ox. That window is the one that the implementation is a major task. But I agree with your protocols. But the implementation of the common people who you can't afford is a big issue, sir. That's what this meeting about. Go ahead, sir. Pawan, sir, please comment on that.
Right, sir. So you mean to say, sir, that we start steroid probably on day 4 or day 5, and where there is, where pulse oximeter is not available with the patient, and then keep it for about 10 to 15 days and then monitor the patient. Probably I agree with you on, Yes,
Yes.
I agree with you on that, sir. I totally agree with you on that. Because we can't look for hypoxia in patients where we don't have the pulse oximeter. That's a resource limited setting. Yes. So the first thing, sir, when we see a patient on a telemedicine platform, we tell them that the first most important thing is to buy a pulse oximeter and keep it with them. And again, sir, are you looking at any because you're just mentioning regarding your relative. So I'm generally starting every patient on about 0.1 milligram per kg of dexamethasone. Do you think that's the right dose, or probably we need to go up on the dosage of that?
Okay, this lady, I just got the text. She's on 32 milligrams of methylprednisolone for last 2 weeks. 32
Right.
is not enough. She should have been 80. Our dose is 40 milligram twice a day. 80 milligrams of prednisone in ESA, whichever equal to methylprednisolone, and you can convert to Dexo, whichever it is. The
Right.
dose we're missing, especially what we're seeing is Suresh saying is start at 80, go down. It is better go down, but don't go
Right.
other way around. Don't go. That's where the mistake. And these people who are very rich people, they don't want to tell. They feel this is stigma, fear, and they don't want to tell anybody. And this patient I lost it, they don't want to tell. And the other one isn't down. Even though they call the doctor, they're not aware. They're giving steroids, smaller dose. This is what the India, not all, globe is facing. It's terrible in America in this situation. Outpatient, starting 80, India, we can able to get talked to. We have less restrictions. We're able to get through that. But here is a terrible situation there. But what can we say? That's where, sir, the implementation, a common person, I'm not worried about hospital bed. They're all full. So nobody, they don't come to you. But they come to you only 5% of the population, 80% outside. And this meeting for them. Yes,
So,
sir.
Lokesh?
Sir,
Yes,
I
sir.
have a point to add, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Sorry, as Dr. Lokesh has said, we are facing this problem. By the time the patient comes to us, it is already 1 week. He started with symptoms by already 1 week. He comes and says, I had fever for 2 days and then I am fine. And he says, I think this is not COVID. He's saying, I'm having a little bit of fever, little myalgias and all that stuff. And I send him for CT and it is showing CORAD 5. And I check his pulse ox, it's around 88, like that. So they are presenting late. And as sir has already rightly said, they are having some stigma. And you don't believe, I suggested one patient to get a RT-PCR done on checking his CT. He went and committed suicide. So that is the situation here. Lot of stigma. They are presenting late. So we have to do this. We have to bring awareness, sir. Early, they should present early. They should consult a doctor early, at least on telephone. Early consultation is best. By the time they come, we send them to CT. They are already correct 5 or 6 and they are desaturating. We have to put them in hospital.
And
So,
one more thing to add, Prasanthi made, I talked to the village people, they're so scared to tell them because they cannot buy a cold medication. I'm going to note down this word. They are government taking us like a dogs. They're so scared. Even the rich people, they're not coming out. That is the major thing. And the famous epidemiologist said that the major thing is stigma and coordination between government and private. Now we're at least government private is coordinating much higher level in Andhra Pradesh. I don't know other states. That we're able to overcome. But coming to the stigma, that's what our major obstacles are.
And one more thing, sir. In peripheries, we don't have ferritin levels, D dimers, and all that. So we have to depend on C-reactive protein elevation and then decide on giving steroids. I think what I'm saying is true.
Madam, CRP is an indirect marker for elevated
Yes, sir.
IL-6. So another thing I want to add, madam, there is now of late the people or patients, whoever it is, they are queuing up before the CT scan center, which are becoming hot red zones. If one patient among all those queues are affected, don't know how many are can escape from that. So this has become of late a mania to get the CT before testing anything. So really, I'm worried. Maybe the CT scan centers are becoming a red hot zones.
Let's move on to the next case, and after that we can talk so many other issues that are going on around the stigmas and the steroids, etc. This next case is another example of, he's a 72-year-old male who had presented with the dyspnea. RT-PCR was positive, and history of uncontrolled diabetes mellitus type 2, coronary artery bypass grafts, hypertension, and Addison's disease. Severely hypoxemic, worsening clinical condition on BiPAP. Treated with remdesivir, treated with tocilizumab without any relief. So it's 1 week after the treatment. There's considering almost intubating. He was on hydrocortisone because he has an Addison's disease. They increase it to the steroid, to the stress levels. So he had hydrocortisone 100 milligrams twice a day. So this is the time that we got involved. We were involved in the meeting, in the conference call. So we would like to start them on the dexamethasone 8 milligram TID, or actually we wanted to start on Solimidor methylprednisolone, 120 milligrams Q8 hours. We have a very strong resistance from the treating pulmonologist that he thinks that there is no studies were done, so he is not willing to. So finally we compromised and we agreed upon starting with the dexamethasone. Then they would like to start him on a 6 milligram dose per day, which we felt that it is not enough. So even Dr. Idara was also on the phone. So we were able to convince them to start on dexamethasone 8 milligrams 3 times a day. In 24 hours, the oxygenation improved. We prevented the intubation. In 48 hours, he's tolerating 4 liters of oxygen by nasal cannula. And he has a high blood sugars, but which were controlled with insulin. And this is a classic case that we're seeing, that where we would like to try to treat the high dose of steroids in patients who need it, number one. Also, we were discussing about in the discussion is whether the steroids has to be, which steroids to be treated. There's a significant discussion we had in this one. That's why I put this slide to everybody to understand about the steroids, which steroid to choose. There are 3 groups of steroids that we are dealing with mainly. One is the hydrocortisone or cortisone, or intermediate acting is prednisone and methylprednisone, and the long acting is dexamethasone. If you can see the potency, as well as the second one is the first column is the glucocorticoid potency. Second column is the mineralocorticoid potency. If you can see that the mineralocorticoid activity is very less with the dexamethasone and high with hydrocortisone. But that is the reason we do not use the hydrocortisone or cortisone. And the glucocorticoid activity is very low to the hydrocortisone and very high to the dexamethasone. So we chose in the between the methylprednisolone.
Slides are not our. Suresh, are you sharing the screen with your slide?
Yeah.
No, it's not showing.
Let me share it. Yeah. Can you see now? Hello?
Yeah.
See you.
No.
No, not slides, sir. Go ahead then.
Yeah.
We'll share in the other one when we record.
Okay. Right. All right. So this, I'll try in the, So what we're recommending is about methylprednisolone, if it is available, if it is expensive, even whatever the steroid that is available, but we try to avoid hydrocortisone and cortisone because of the high mineralocorticoid activity. And the dexamethasone we do not prefer as much as because of it has a high glucose levels go up in most of the patients. That's the only reason. So otherwise, you can use whatever the steroid you want to use. I will leave it to the panel for discussion at this stage regarding the steroid and what kind of steroids to use, etc.
Suresh, just 1 minute. Chandrasekhar, our classmate and ancestor, he just posted one question he wanted me to ask on his behalf. So he wants to know what is the role of antibiotics, and what is the tapering method, and what is the significance of antibody testing. These three questions he posted me. I'm asking on his behalf. Chandrasekhar, you remember, no?
Okay.
Go ahead.
So there are three parts of questions that you're asking. One is what is the role of the antibiotics? Antibiotics that we would like to give only if we suspect about infection. Otherwise, we are not using any antibiotics. Plus, patients who are on the high dose steroids, prophylactically, feeling maybe we are treating ourselves to treat with an antibiotic or community acquired pneumonias, etc. when the patient's coming outside. That's why we prefer to use the doxycycline or erythromycin. So it's a preference of whoever that, the physician that want to treat it. That's about the antibiotic. On the tapering the steroids, it depends on how the patient's condition is. Once patient improve, we'll go gradual tapering, usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks. And the third question you asked?
Significance of antibody test.
Significance of antibody test. Antibody test only tells that the patient had infection. And we have seen that there is only about 20 to 27% of the people developing antibodies, depending on which study you're looking into. And some studies says 50 to 60% of the antibodies developing. IgM antibodies indicate that recent infection. IgG is again, a little bit farther later. So these antibodies, whether they prevent, even if you take the convalescent serum infused in the patients, whether they prevent any disease or prevent the inflammation is questionable. We still did not get the results of this plasma therapy, but the earlier studies are not that optimistic, because these patients were all treated with during the severe inflammatory stage, where the antibodies do not do anything. So other than that, I do not have any other comment. If any other comment.
Just a tricky question that happened in our hospital. Is there a possibility of RT-PCR being positive and antibodies negative?
Yes, it can be. We are seeing quite frequently. So, Dr. Dara?
Yeah. We see all different time. We have antibody negative, which is only lasting 2 to 3 months. And also we have 30-40% of a lot of people are now tests available. They're doing the test earlier and they're coming positive, and false negatives, false positives. So we treat with the symptoms, follow the symptoms. Antibodies, I don't think we're testing much. There's still a long way to go.
So the other question that we were facing constantly is when to start the steroids. I think again that Dr. Praveen explained, it is the early signs of the inflammation. Unfortunately, we don't have a specific marker that states that it is the early sign of inflammation. I think we are following generally multiple things, either symptoms, their hypoxemia, their labs see reactive protein. If it is available, D-dimers, ferritin, and the LDH is another one that can be a very specific marker that you can see in the inflammation. So these are all the things that we together, if you look into the patient, the earlier, the better, the lower dose we can use. The later, then we have to go the higher dose of the steroids. I think that that is the message that I would like to give.
And one more thing I'm going to mention, I forgot it earlier, I forgot to put the slide about the API disclaimer of teleconference COVID-19. The services of API COVID-19 teleconference is for information purpose only, should not be considered as medical or financial advice. This is opinion, actually, opinions of panelists. API has no liability as how this is interpreted. No liability results, losses, damage that may be caused directly or indirectly or incidentally. Please refer to CDC website or your state government or Indian government authority or your own country's authority for information purpose. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Sir, one other question which I wanted to ask the panelists was regarding the usage of favipiravir early in the course, because only India is currently using favipiravir. I think other than that, Japan is using, and it's still to get an FDA approval from US. So any light you can shed on that, sir?
My personal feeling, I suppose, my job is I don't treat many, but I talk to a lot of people. I have 3 people's liver function level enzymes are elevated. They stopped it, and it need to be antiviral. Again, this topic is not viral. Viral is not the one which is killing us. We are not using any Paviplo. We're not in favor of remdesivir. Even IL-6 have the BioEdge. We see the other day a global summit they have the infections, especially in diabetes. IL-6 giving a lot of fungal infections. So these are all negatives coming, but positives which you have seen. I'm sure Suresh or other anyone who is using Pavipil in your office, India is the main you can bring us.
No, Idara, I really think I have seen, we have treated with everything. Actually, no, I'm in a unique position where I treat many patients as an outpatient, but we do have hospital consultation. Our group is the only group that goes to the hospital as an immunologist, and we have not seen any response to any of the drugs that we are talking about. And using of the antivirals earlier, we really do not start anybody. In our practice, we do not use any antiviral drugs because most of these patients that come to you, they're already on the 5th day or 6th day of the infection. I do not see any use. Maybe if it is useful, if you are using patients who have exposed to the disease and to prevent the disease, I have no idea. Because I did not see any trial to. And patients that were all severely inflamed and those who are in the hospital, I have seen using the remdesivir, using the IL-6 antibodies, I'll see the IL-1 antibodies and Actindra, I'll see the JAK antibodies. All these things will just transient decrease in the hospital days rather than none of the drug, please note that, none of the drug prevented any mortality compared to the other comparative studies. Okay, so the only drug that was proven that can prevent the mortality or prevent the death is the dexamethasone from the Oxford study. And there is a recent study that was done in US, one of the John Hopkins, they showed that the prednisone itself can prevent it. It's a simple, if people that are using steroids, they know all the steroids work. As you mentioned, Praveen, it is mainly what we're doing is what drug has a highly effective glucocorticoid effect? What drug has that low mineralocorticoid effect? What drug is causing the less problem with the sugars, etc., etc.
Sudhakar, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Go ahead. Can you mention?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the discussion of your personal experience. And we're going to do more webinars so that before we get to some conclusion of this control on the disease. And I had to join another meeting. I thank you, Idra, for doing all the panelists. Thank you and blessed evening. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you. Next question we have is, thank you, Sudhakar, for appreciate. I'm happy for you this platform for all over the globe. I really appreciate it. So go ahead and go to the next question. There's a question about, there's 2 major questions. What can we do for rural India where there's no test, no CT scans, nothing, only have clinical symptoms? The second question is inhaled corticosteroids. First, I will talk about both me and Suresh were treating, of course, you all treating inhaled steroids from last 30 years. The dose of inhaled steroid is less than 1 milligrams. Less than 1 milligram. Now we're discussing whether the dose of 250 milligrams or 80 milligrams or 1 gram. So by treating inhaled steroid, you're not focusing like Arjuna, not on the focus, you're diluting everywhere else. So your focus is only high dose steroid long enough. If you're doing the inhaled steroid and you are giving something, you're losing your time. So I think your focus should be only direct, simple, and can be implementable. So that's our opinion. We do not plan to give inhaled steroid. If you are asthma patient, they will continue. That's what. Suresh or anyone else about inhaled steroid?
Right. I agree, Idara. I mean, there is a study going on in Thailand that they're doing one of the inhaled steroids, budesonide, to see whether that can prevent in the population. So until that study comes out, we may not have any answers at this time. But in vitro study showed some decrease in the viral replication. Will also, let me comment, other thing. We came across in the last 3 months with our experience that it's indicated that you have to treat it earlier in the course of inflammation to prevent any death. That's the number one we established. There is no doubt about it. There is no debate on that. The second one is now we are addressing is if we start these steroids, already the information is sets in. Really, when the patient is in the hospital, does there any high dose steroids has any effect? That's what we're seeing now is that giving the high dose, very early stages of inflammation does prevent it, does cure, does prevent the mortality. Now I will ask Dr. Ravindra Babu also has some, I think, experience of the inhaled steroids because of his chest position, and he has been treating with inhaled steroids. Maybe we see a little bit less problem with asthma. We are not saying that asthma is a comorbid condition for the COVID-19. So that may be a little bit protective action there, but that's debatable at this time. Dr. Ravindra? Unmute, Dr. Yep.
And what about the recent, I think, announcement by some Bartlett or somebody who said budesonide nebulization is almost, he said, silver bullet or golden bullet, I don't know.
No, that's 1 milligram. I just answered. That's waste of time. And that got 3 million hits, unfortunately. I don't think it's worth talking now.
Yeah, as a treatment, I don't think it is going to be useful, Ravindra. We saw that is more like an advertisement thing. We did not. We went through that few things, but the treatment-wise, it's not helpful. Whether the preventive-wise it's helpful or not, we're waiting for the study from the Thailand. There is a 3,000 patient that they are studying, looking to compare to the population.
But regarding the antivirals, see, in Andhra Pradesh, actually, initially, whenever the patient got admitted, we used to give hydroxyquinoline. See, I think thousands got discharged, and I think most of them were diagnosed early because the tests were done for the family contacts and all that. We never saw anybody deteriorating. Even now, most of the people, they come late and they come in a stage of hypoxia. I don't know whether the hydroxyquinoline really acted on them. I think somehow I don't have any opinion on the use of either favipiravir or remdesivir as an antiviral drug. So as far as India is concerned, I think I personally feel hydroxyquinoline is a good drug. It doesn't have any toxicity. And actually, with our protocol, I think whoever is there in Andhra Pradesh, like the professor of Pinnamaneni and others, they can vouch for it. See, thousands got discharged. They never got deteriorated whenever they use, whoever used the hydroxyquinoline. Nowadays, we get cases because they come very late. But whoever is on hydroxyquinoline, they don't usually deteriorate. Whoever comes late with the hypoxemia, they get better with steroid, or sometimes with comorbidities like renal failure and all that, they deteriorate. But whoever is coming with the mild symptoms, previously we never saw them getting deteriorated. Almost 99% of them. I don't know whether it is due to hydroxyquinoline or they responded on that. But I think favipiravir and waste of time, waste of money also. Remdesivir, say nowadays we give remdesivir along with the steroids. I don't know which is acting.
Oh, that's clear, sir. Steroid. Because Prasanthi made people, 50 people who are with the dose related, they are going on 40. That's why I presented. And I do think there is a study done in parallel, steroid versus remdesivir in parallel. I'm sure it is unethical to do, and it will be easy to answer that question. And another question, rural India, where there is no 50-70% of population, rural India, no CT scans, only clinical symptoms, only steroid. What is the recommendation? That's one question in the panel. Rural India, we have no access. What do we do?
See, in Andhra Pradesh, they have a volunteers for every 50 household. So all of them were provided with the pulse oximeter, and usually they check all the households, and whoever is having a less than 90% after 150 watt, after less than 94%, see, they will go for, they will take them for testing. So that facility is given by the government of Andhra Pradesh. So every volunteer is having a pulse oximeter. So every volunteer is catered to 50 households.
I see. Okay. I think the fear of them testing positive, taking them away is the main thing we have. If they show up, if they show pulse ox, treatment can be given by the government. I think people need to not afraid and just check quickly.
Most of them are afraid because see, once they become positive, either their apartment or the household comes into a containment. They think once the containment zone is because of them. That's why most of people are afraid.
Yes.
I think the containments also, so I'm not happy about it. What I feel is they put the containment only for cars, whereas most of the people are allowed to go
Walking
outside.
around. Let
Only
government-
cars are left in the apartment.
Sir, I have a query, sir.
Yes, sir.
The nasopharynx is the most important entry point for this COVID. Will you suggest, especially for healthcare workers, any nasal spray like cyclisonide to prevent because they are constantly exposed to this entry? Do you suggest any?
I think we do nasal spray. Me and Suresh can recommend. I don't think we're recommending any. I think Suresh is dropped off. Maybe his internet. So I don't think we recommend any nasal spray. What I recommend is I'm going to the office, see the patient when as a healthcare worker when I come back. When I'm done, I'm going to clean all my face and with alcohol, everything. I don't know whether right or not, but that's what we do. But nasal spray, you're putting something and spraying. It reduces inflammation, but viral growth by steroid, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer. I don't see. I mean, if you're in the morning, you want steroid no spray, no problem. We use this nasal steroid from 1 year to 90 years old, 10 to 20 years. So there's no downside to it. It reduces the inflammation. Maybe it heals inside. Maybe the virus won't go through. So there are some maybe benefits, but I don't think we see any agonist or anything like that.
See, Chakradhar, we don't know
Yeah.
much about the innate immunity of these patients, or any patients with those who have the rhinitis, etc. So, since the innate immunity also plays significant role, okay, we really want to make sure the topical steroids might help to regrowth, especially in the nose. The problem with the nose is a lot of these mucous membranes or the mucus secretions, so if it is thickened out, then we are going to get into problem that the clearance goes and the cilia doesn't work. So that's one of the reasons we use warm water saline irrigations commonly. So whether there is just the pure irrigations will help or topical steroids help, we have no idea at this time.
And also,
And gargling also.
yeah. Because we're almost 1.5 hours, I would like to take some, and if no questions, we'd like to respected panelists to give your conclusion. We'll go with ladies first. Prasanthi, madam, you want to make any conclusion? Please unmute.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Api, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you all the panelists. Actually, I learned so much today from all of you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Praveen, sir.
Sir, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, sir. But you made it very clear to all of us that using steroid at the right time will probably save a lot of lives, and using it for longer periods of time will probably help us, because Recovery Trail was telling us use it for 10 days. But I think today we have learned that we should give it for more number of days, and by that we'll probably reduce the inflammation more. Thank you very much for enlightening us on that aspect, sir.
Thank you so
I
much.
would like to add one thing
Yes,
to
sir.
Dr. Praveen's comments on steroids. Right time is the time when you see the patient for the first time. That is the right time.
Sir,
Right, sir.
closing statement, Chakradhar, sir.
Yeah. The steroids have the main role in the management of COVID, and nothing harm in starting at an early time as early as possible. You see the patient along with the antivirals. My personal experience is that remdesivir is somewhat helpful against this COVID because I am following since 2 weeks, 2 months. We have given a good number of patients and they have recovered well. I don't know whether it is due to steroids or remdesivir, but the goal is reached. Thank you.
Sir, Dr. Giridhar, sir. No.
Ravindra Babu.
Yes, sir, yeah. Closing statement.
I think my personal view is I think we must educate all of us doctors and the journalists or whoever it is for the patient to come early to the doctor. And because when they come early, I think the prognosis is good. When they delay because of the stigma or whatever it is, I think it is difficult to, there is some sort of mortality. I think all doctors, whether through WhatsApp or Facebook or through some other media, I think we should educate the public about that, particularly at this juncture.
Maybe we should ask our chief ministers and prime ministers to take up this award or something like that. Maybe everybody gets serious. Because we can able to reach very few, I mean, drop in the bucket. So we need, if any connections, please educate our task force and sir, so that it will get to them, because politically help us. The awareness, that's all we're asking, is evidence based. Yeah. Suresh?
Yeah,
When you have a problem of beds in the hospitals, you can give a home quarantine with steroids. That may be going in the right direction.
Yes. How about this way, sir? Starting the home treatment so that we can prevent 90% of the admissions. That's what Suresh is doing for last 2 months.
Yeah. So most of the cases need not be admitted.
Yes.
Here we are admitting for other than medical reasons. Maybe some recommendations that should be cut.
We cannot cut. When the money is there, we cannot do that. We have to make confidence building coming from the higher level will be the way it may be implementable. Suresh, sir.
I thank everyone for attending this meeting. I think what we were trying to do is to address everyone, that it's, especially the general practitioners or the people that are in the front line, not to hesitate to treat with the steroids when you feel that the patient has inflammation and its inflammatory markers going. And also, these patients, we are only seeing right now acutely. Our goal at this time is acutely to stop the admissions in the hospital, to stop the mortality, so that the healthcare can be used for many other purposes. And the third thing that I would like to do, we do not know what will happen if we don't address the inflammation very early in the stage. Is it going to cause a lot of long-term problem with the chronic pulmonary fibrosis, etc., etc.? We already see a few patients that developing Guillain-Barré syndrome, after post-viral. These are the things that we need to keep in mind. So, with this, I thank everybody, and especially I would like to thank Dr. Idara and Dr. Vijaya Kodali, who is behind the scenes, which is organized and put everything website together. I thank you very much, Dr. Idara. It's back to you.
Thank you so much, thanks Kodali Madam, and also the President of Sudhakar and all the team of API and leadership. I think the message is same. We need to treat early. We need to prevent hospital admissions, probably early steroids. Awareness is issue. Stigma is issue. Working together with the government officials. Maybe it's time to big leaders take up the part that what works as a nationwide, like wearing the mask. Maybe it's coming steroid. I mean, we take the evidence-based information, take that evidence, talk to hospital like Prasanthi Madam, talk to Pawan sir, all the people, and get them, and then make a statement. If they're coming from their mouth, the big leaders, everybody take it serious, and that's what it is we needed. Thank you so much. If anybody want to comment, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Suresh, for taking all the pains to arrange this webinar, and thank you, Dr. Lokesh, Dr. Sudhakar, and all other Dr. Vijaya. And we are looking forward to meet you in future for sharing the information for the betterment of the management of COVID. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. So we'll all say goodbye. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Everybody be safe and wear the mask, social distancing, and hand wash.
Wear the mask even at home too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you.